Does your frame rate drop when a lot of players swarm the place? Or does your game freeze as soon as an enemy jumps on you? Yeah, same thing happened to me too. I hate it when I die without doing anything. After days of testing different settings, I found the best setting for BlueStack 5-player. In this video, I'm going to explain to you the settings in BlueStack 5-player and give you my best settings for the BlueStack 5-player. Let's dash right in. I will tell you my PC specs so you can get a better understanding what this setting really works for. CPU, i5, 3.2 GHz. RAM, 12 GB. Graphics card, GTX 662 GB. Now, for the settings. First, let's talk about performance settings. This is the tab where you set the limits for resources for the BlueStack player. As for the CPU cores, you need to assign all your CPU cores to the BlueStacks player. This way it gets the maximum processing horsepower to run every process it needs, without freezing. For the RAM, you need to give BlueStack player half of the RAM you got in your PC. The maximum it can have is 4 GB or 4096 MB. The next one is performance mode. There are 3 performance modes in BlueStack 5-player. Let me explain them a bit to you. The first mode is conserve memory mode. This mode limits the processes in BlueStacks to conserve RAM. So your PC won't act like an old car. Use this mode if you have very low memory, like under 4 GB. The second mode is balance mode. As the name says, it balances the performance and the RAM usage of the BlueStack player. Balance mode is very good if you have 4 GB RAM. But you may experience some jagging and freezings and you play hardcore games like Free Fire and Call of Duty Mobile. The third mode is high performance mode. This is the beast mode of the BlueStacks player. If you have more than 2 CPU cores and 4 GB RAM, you can use this. This mode squeezes out everything out of your PC to get the best performance for your game. The next setting is the frame rate. If you have low specs than my PC, I'd say you better stay with 30 frames per second. But if you have more or similar specs to mine, you can go for 60 frames per second or higher. But 60 frames per second is all you need to have the best gameplay experience. I've never gone above 60 frames per second because it's unnecessary and it puts extra stress on the PC. So you can keep that high frame rate switched off. Next is to turn on your VSync switch. This setting matches the game's frame rate with your monitor's frequency to stop the frame tearing. Screen tearing is when you see parts of 2 frames at the same time. Turning this on makes it easy to get headshots in shooter-type games. You can turn your show FPS switch on if you want to freak out while playing games, whenever the frame rate drops. The next tab is display settings. From the display resolution drop-down menu, choose landscape orientation. Then choose either 1280 by 720 resolution or 1600 by 900 resolution. When you go for full HD resolution, it starts to freeze for several milliseconds from time to time. If you have low or have similar specs like mine. The best resolution I found was the HD settings, 1280 by 720. But I use 1600 by 900 for the sake of gameplay video quality. Next is DPI. DPI stands for dots per inch. For DPI, you can go with the high preset. When you change your DPI, sensitivity in some games will be changed. So you may want to adjust those settings in those games. Then change your mouse cursor style to the system default. This will save a teeny bit of RAM. But hey, we need all the performance we can get. Next is graphics. This tab has all the graphics settings we need to adjust in BlueStacks 5-player. 5 settings, to be exact. The first is graphics engine mode. This setting determines how would you want BlueStacks to process the graphics settings for your games. The compatibility mode is a bit advanced and needs more processing power to use. And every game does not support this mode. The performance mode is much more efficient in graphic processing. This mode is biased towards the performance of the graphic processing. You need to keep this mode in performance mode. But BlueStacks player asks you to switch it for some game when you play them. Next is graphics render setting. The OpenGL and DirectX are graphic processing libraries. These libraries tell programs how to process the graphics in that program. If you have a small graphics card like my one, you should keep it in OpenGL. If you change it to DirectX, you'll lose some FPS. Interface renderer setting allows you to change how to render the graphics of the BlueStacks player. You should keep this in auto mode. Because sometimes it starts to give black screens and game controller problems. Some PCs work better with software decoding, and some PCs work with OpenGL, and some works with DirectX. My PC gave me black screens when I changed it to OpenGL. So I keep it auto. So the BlueStack can work with the best settings for it. ASTC texture setting is a graphic performance improving algorithm. ASTC stands for Adaptive Scalable Texture Compression. If you don't know, textures are the so-called skins on 3D models in the games. This algorithm reduces data size, memory footprint, and loading time. But it delivers the speed and the quality of graphics, they say. But when I disabled it, I got a few frames for my FPS count. So you should turn it off to avoid unnecessary processing. If you have a graphics card jam into your motherboard, turn it on in the GPU and use switches. In the device settings, you should choose a better gaming phone framework for BlueStacks to work with. I use Asus ROG 2. This is the best one I found for my PC. You should test this setting for your PC, and find what is the best for use. Well, that's it for BlueStack settings. Let's head over to System Graphics Settings. Right-click on your desktop and choose your graphics control panel. Mine is an NVIDIA graphics card, so I choose the NVIDIA control panel. In this window, go to the Manage 3D Settings section and choose the Program Settings tab. Under that tab, click the Add button. Then click Browse button. Then go to where you installed your BlueStack player folder, and choose App Player, hdplayer.exe. Then click Add Selected Program. Now you can change the graphic card settings for the BlueStack player. In the settings, change the following settings. Low latency mode equals off. Max frame rate equals 60 frames per second. Power management mode equals prefer maximum performance. Texture filtering quality equals performance. And press apply. Now your PC has no resistance to go for 60 frames per second in BlueStack player. Summary. Assign all of your CPU cores. Let the BlueStacks have half of your RAM. Keep that performance mode in high performance mode. Switch off the high frame rate switch. Increase the frame rate to 60 frames per second. Use 1280 by 720 resolution with high DPI preset. Windows style cursor. Set the graphics engine to performance mode. Use OpenGL to graphic render settings. Interface rendering to auto mode. ASTC turned off. In system graphics settings. Low latency mode off. Max frame rate 60 frames per second. Power management mode prefer maximum performance. Texture filtering quality, performance. Well, use these settings and give me feedback in the comment section. See you in next video, maybe.